Hello everyone and welcome back to the Belgian Beer Brothers channel. Today is January 2nd and I am back with a follow-up on that series of winter beers that I had to take a break from. Unfortunately, today we are going to talk about the Troubadour Winter. Troubadour, of course, by Brewery the Musketeers. And I recently had the joy of meeting the owners of the Musketeers. But it is, with less than 25 years, already a brewery with quite a rich history. So the Musketeers was actually founded by, hence the name, four friends, four hobby brewers, four brewing engineers actually, namely Christophe, Stefan, Rickert and Sven, of which Christophe and Stefan are still at the head of the company. Rickert and Sven unfortunately left the brewery. Back in 1999, these four musketeers decided to join forces after they experimented a lot in Christoph's mom's kitchen. And they immediately came in strong because they started out with the Troubadour Blonde. This was a strong blonde, 8.5% ABV. But because they found that it gets you drunk a bit too quick, they actually adjusted the recipe and came out with a 6.5% ABV, which is still on sale today. Not long thereafter, in 2001, the Troubadour Obscura, or the Dark Troubadour, saw the light of day, and then it took quite a while before they released new beers. Their next beer in line was in 2010, so 11 years after opening, and that was the famed Troubadour Magma. This is a fantastic IPA, and bear in mind that 2010 is pre-IPA hype. I actually got to know this brewery with the Troubadour Magma, and it's actually sort of an amber IPA, but I immediately fell in love with it. Of course, I wasn't the only one who fell in love with this, so they soon lacked capacity, and in 2016 they bought an old masonry in het Waasland here in Belgium, and they renovated it into a ecological brewery. In 2019 the new brewery was inaugurated, and they had a capacity of 60 hectoliters per brew, and they installed a new bottling line capable of doing 6,000 bottles per hour, which is quite nice. They also added a brewery cafe, which you can visit, and yeah, I'd say please do so. It's a fantastic area. Go for a hike and for a drink over there. Now, they don't just sell the ecological story, they actually practice as they preach. So, for example, they reduced the water cost from about 7 or 8 liters to about 4 liters. They did this by cleaning their pipes and stuff with rainwater, and the residue of the rest of the water that's been used is used to irrigate the Waase Golf. They have several 20,000 liter tanks to catch rainwater, and they use the majority of that. They also have a state-of-the-art heat recuperation system with which they recuperate the heat from cooling down and from the boiling kettle to warm up the water to start their next brew, for example. Also, the rest of the malts and stuff are sold as cattle food, and they mainly use locally sourced products so they can minimize the transportation cost as well as the impact on the environment. Currently, they have about 18 beers in their portfolio, and they have a production of about 8,000 hectoliters a year, which is quite a lot. They even export to about 15 countries, 14, 15 countries, And yeah, I can see great things happening for this brewery because, for example, when I visited them in October, November, they were talking about expanding the brewery again. They were talking about modernizing their bottling line and their kegging line, and I know for a fact that they were looking for a new brewer and some new people. So I also had the joy of meeting, yeah, some people that work at the brewery, and I must say that each and every one that I met has this level of know-how and knows their entire brewery and is completely with their story, which is quite the achievement. So, anywho, onto the beer. This beer is their Troubadour Winter. It has an ABV of 9.99%. Of course, that's a gimmick, but yeah, I know for a fact that they didn't want to make a cliche, a 13 and a dozen winter beer, so they wanted to brew something special, and this is what came out. Now, first let's look at the label. Suede brown beer re-fermented in the bottle. Ingredients: water, malted barley, hops, herbs, spices and yeast. And that is pretty much all they're telling us. Now, it does have a best before date within 3 years, and I do love this branding, this very simple logo label again, with their logo for once in blue, not in black or red. I love this this scenery on the label. So let's have a taste. Also, I absolutely love the lute in the logo here. So, on to the tasting. My favorite glass, the Executive. Lovely branded bottle cap. And with the new year, it seems like I'll have to get a new glass to hold my bottle caps. That is quite the nice color. Like I said, they didn't want your average Christmas beer or winter beer, so this is not necessarily a brown ale. Look at that color. This is actually a very deep coppery red, brownish color. Quite clear as well. Some brownish beige foam, quite dense foam. Medium to large bubbles as well. Yeah, and that smell right off the bat, this beer doesn't smell sweet at all. It actually smells rather spicy, and I don't mean the typical star anise or licorice or cinnamon. I actually get more fragrances of gingerbread and emphasis on the ginger here. It is quite bready as well. I think I smell some clove too. Yeah, a lot of clove actually. And this reminds me of old Christmas cookies, like with the ginger and with the peppery scents. So yeah, let's immediately have a taste. Oh wow, Indeed, I wouldn't call this beer sweet, but I do get some hints of caramel. But the tiny hint of sweetness that is in this beer isn't sugary, it's rather fruity. And I do get a lot of roasted malts in here. Yeah, I do get some dark malts, some roasted malts, some caramel flavors, a tiny bit of molasses, but mainly spices here. So even the taste reminds me of the gingerbread or the ginger cookies, and I get a lot of clove here as well. So yeah, the aftertaste. Yeah, the aftertaste is also quite bitter. So the aftertaste might remind me of the Troubadour Magma and is a bit hoppy, but it also has a lot of those roasted malts in there. And I think that the red thread throughout this whole beer, throughout this whole story, is the spices, the clove, maybe even some rosemary or thyme here. And while saying that, I think it's rather funny because the logo is a lute. Also, something's written beneath the lute. I don't know if I can read it here. Cervecia et musica, so beer and music. I can't read the rest. But of course, the lute refers to the Troubadour name. Also, I think it's awesome that we're doing this series right now. And of course, it's not a coincidence, but even with a cold, you can taste everything in these beers, in these wintery beers. So, yeah, thank God for that. Anywho, I'm gonna leave it at that. All that's left for me to do is score this beer, because I am well aware that I often forget that. Yeah, I would call this a 4, maybe 4.25 in Untapped, so an 8, 8.5 out of 10. I absolutely love this beer. First of all, of course, for not being your average winter beer or Christmas beer. We've had a lot of those, yeah, and we've had enough of those as well. But mainly because this really ticks my boxes. I like the spicy part, I like the roasty part, and I like the not that sweet but rather bitter part. So it's a 3 out of 3 for me. And yeah, awesome. So cheers, you guys. I'm gonna leave you with this as usual. Thanks a lot for watching. If you have any remarks or comments or questions or whatever, leave them down in the comments and I'll get back to you guys. And if you want to see more, subscribe, hit the bell icon, and you'll get a notification whenever I upload something. That's it. See you tomorrow.